Hello everyone and welcome to day number 8 of our Foundation Series webinar. For today, we are going to be looking at a topic very, very close to my heart. This was my old career before I joined Loxone. We're going to be looking at the intercom and access control. What the products we have available for those are, how we configure them, and the extra nice little bits of really, really in-depth detail that we can get to that elevates this beyond just an intercom system or just an access control system. So if I just get my screen shared with you, and here we go. A few little slides to share with you, and then we'll get on with the nitty-gritty config stuff. So we're going to look over the products that we have for access control. We're going to look over how we add those into config, how we configure them, the function blocks we use, and how we link them to other features. Because the great thing about Loxone is no man is an island and no Loxone is an island. Everything we can do in Loxone, we should be able to link into the other features we have within the system to give us a just absolutely perfection of a user interface and of a usable system. So some of the products that we have available then. Mini server, I'm sure you've all seen this so many times now, brains of the system, you're always going to need it. These are the two intercom options that we have available. Physically, they are the same size. The differences between them, however, this is the intercom. This has a camera, has a speaker, a microphone, and a call button. So it gives you video and two-way audio. This is the Intercom XL. The Intercom XL, as well as having the video, the speaker and the microphone, also has an up and a down arrow, as well as a caller button and an LCD screen. So straight away, it has more of a design around places like MDUs, so multiple dwelling units, so flat blocks, where you want to call a specific unit. It also has an I button reader built into it. Slightly older technology I button. We've, for the most part, replaced it with NFC, but it's still an available option on the intercom for I button tags that then every user of the system could also have to let themselves into the building. With the intercom, please also remember to get the correct back box for it. So you need to get the back box separately, and you can get surface or flush mounted. Then other access control products. The biggie is the NFC code touch. This is available as tree or air. So really important to point out, the intercom is not tree or air. The intercom is a network device. So Ethernet cable. It is a PoE device. That means power over Ethernet. So all you need to it is a single network cable, Cat5e or greater. And you're bound by the length limit of a network run, which is 90 meters structured cabling. And then you can either plug it into a PoE switch, or it does also come with a PoE injector. So router into PoE injector, out to intercom. The NFC code touch, however, is tree or air. And these for me are the greatest product in our portfolio. I love it. I'm at this point going to stop sharing my screen so I can show you them up close and personal. So here I have myself one of each. The anthracite one, unfortunately, because of the camera, it's quite hard to make out the buttons on the camera. I think I have to get it to a point where it's about level with my head where the camera focuses on it. But there is the anthracite NFC code touch. The white NFC code touch, much easier to see the icons on it. For me, having spent many, many years in the security and access control industry, I don't think there's any keypads that look quite as sexy as ours do. It is so pretty. Glass fronted, capacitive touch numbers. Really cool things about this. It's obviously got NFC code function so that you can take your key fob, which again, we do special Loxone key fobs, square green, nicely printed with Loxone on them. Present it to the NFC code touch, let yourself in. But the thing I really, really like about this, the glass fronting is specially made and specially coated that it doesn't leave fingerprints and it doesn't wear down either because the numbers are not printed on the glass. Because you'll see this with a lot of keypads, especially ones that have physical buttons, is over the years of use where people are pressing the buttons, they start to wear out. And so you can see the 4 or 5 different buttons that somebody presses, and it doesn't take a genius to work out the number of combinations that you could try before you get yourself in through this door. And so this doesn't. Rub your fingers across it, no smeary fingerprint marks. You can see you've got the number keys, you've got a tick, you've got a bell button, and then at the bottom there, that is the reader for the NFC. As I said, available in tree or air. Something to bear in mind, the tree version, obviously you get the backlight, you get the NFC function, you get the keypad function, full functionality. The air version, you can either power it via a battery or via 24 volts. If you power it via 24 volts, then you get full functionality. If you power it via battery, it doesn't have the backlight and it doesn't have the NFC. It's keypad only, code only. So if you want the NFC, you need to get permanent power to them. And then there is a little picture of our key fob. Because I'm super nerdy and I love access control, our keypad is also very, very secure. By secure, I mean network security, encryption level security. Many access control systems don't actually read or write data from the tag. All they do is they read the UID, the unique identifier of the tag, and they grant access based on that. So one of the biggest access systems in the UK, I won't name them by brand, but they have a big green triangle as their logo. They do exactly this. They just read the UID. In fact, what they do is they take the hexadecimal format of the UID, which is usually a long string of numbers, and then they convert that into a 7-digit number. And so that actually means that you could have 2 different cards, which when they convert the number into a 7-decimal digit number, could actually end up with exactly the same UID. And also, because they're only granting access based on that UID, it means that it's not impenetrable to cloning of tags or of cards. We, however, use MyFair DesFire EV1 security. So that is AES-DES encrypted fobs. And we write a little bit of data to the fob. Basically, we write a site code to it. And so the reader, as well as reading the tag ID, and by the way, we read the full UID as well, the full hexadecimal digit, we also read the site code that's been written to the tag as well. And because that site code is AES-DES encrypted, means it is nigh on impossible to clone the tags, or at least currently as of the year 2020. Cool. Let's get on to adding these into config. So moving over to config, I have here my config file. I'm already connected to my demo case. Something a little bit different. Because version 11 of config is due out imminently, I thought, why not? And I've upgraded this system to version 11. For the most part, it'll look exactly the same. There'll just be a few little additions here and there, especially with regards to the tree pairing in diagrams. You'll also be able to see over here that I have added myself a demo wall. And on this demo wall, I have an NFC code touch. For anyone who's joining me live, you'll be able to adjust the screen sizes between my shared screen and here, so you'll be able to see my webcam up nice, close and personal. Now let's get started adding in one of these NFC code touches. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new page, because for me, typically this NFC code touch would be for controlling something like my front door lock. So I would have it on the outside of my building. And so for me, both the intercom and the NFC code touch want to go outside. So I'm going to have a new page, and I'm going to call that page outside and give it the default room of outside. Then I need to add in the NFC code touch. As always, I could manually add it in and then pair it later, or I could just do a tree device search. Here it is, select it, and you may just be able to hear it, but it's clicking and the LEDs on it are flashing red, green rapidly to let me know that I have selected it. Then I need to give it a room, so it's going outside. Installation place, it's going on the wall or by the door, whichever one makes the most sense for you. And then I'm gonna add it in. And there we go. It's outside on the wall. Brilliant. And then I'm going to save that in. Cool. So next is how we actually configure it. This is super simple. We select it in our periphery list and we drag it out. And when we drag it out, it automatically drags out the function block that we need for this device. That's because there's only one function block that's relevant to the NFC Code Touch. And when we drop it onto the page, it opens up with this dialog box here. I'm going to ignore this for a second and just press OK. I'll come onto it in a minute. If you expand the NFC Code Touch, you've also got the option for key code and NFC tags. So you could, if you wanted to, directly learn in NFC tags or key codes straight into the block itself. So I can make this, I don't know, dog walker. And I can give them an access code of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. The cool thing about adding them as key codes or NFC tags directly within the block is you can actually use them as inputs. So then I could use this as an input and tie it into my lighting controller. So as soon as the dog walker typed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and pressed tick, it could turn on the lights outside, for instance, or lights in, I don't know, wherever. And I'm just going to get rid of that for a second. Cool, so there's the NFC Code Touch on the page. Let's start by taking a quick look at some of the parameters before we move on to inputs and outputs. So NFC Code Touch and parameters. You can see that by default, user interface password is ticked on this block. Now that means that in the app, to be able to look at this function block, I would actually have to do that second level of authentication that we did right at the beginning when we created our users. I couldn't just get straight into this block. That's because I have the ability to open a door or unlock a lock from this block. Other than that, we have allow additional pre-selections. So what this means, something really, really cool about the NFC Code Touch. Again, if I just stop sharing my screen and show you it close up again, this device allows us to select more than just a single output. We can have multiple outputs from the one device. Now, to give you an example of how that could be useful, let's picture that we have a, I don't know, gate leading into the property. And we have a vehicle gate, and next to it we have a pedestrian gate. We only want a single NFC Code Touch mounted in the middle of the two. And so what we could do is have that in the middle of the two. We can have just a single access fob. And output number one could be the vehicle gate. And so as soon as we fob, it'll open the vehicle gate and just the vehicle gate. Output two could be the pedestrian gate. And so what we could do is we could press 2 and then present our fob, and then it would just open the pedestrian gate. So you've got a lot of functionality from the one device to have multiple different things triggered. Now, by default, you have 6 available outputs, 6 available selections. However, for commercial buildings where there may be the necessity to have many, many more, for instance, locker access, which is exactly what we do at our base camp, one NFC Code Touch, and everyone's fob opens their particular locker, we may need potentially several thousand outputs. And that's what this tick box allows us to do. It takes the available outputs from 6 to 9,999. We also have the ability to enable two-factor authentication. That means that somebody needs to present a fob and put their code in to get through this door, so super high security buildings. We can select the brightness of the backlight. We can also select how long these outputs stay on for. The reason for that is for a lock like a mag lock, where we remove power from it, the door will only be unlocked for the period of time we've removed the power. And so if it only pulsed, so if it was only a momentary signal, then actually that means that there wouldn't be enough time for us to get through the door. And I've seen this on access control systems of people literally bouncing off the doors as they press things like exit buttons. And so what we can do is we can select a reasonable length of time that the output will be on for to make sure that the door unlocks for a period of time that is long enough for us to get out. We also have the ability to manually enable or automatically enable the backlight. So by default, this tick box is ticked, which means that the backlight is automatically enabled during nighttime. Remember, it's already got our geolocation. We set it up at the beginning. It's got dusk and dawn times. So that's the default option. Otherwise, we could untick this, and then we have the option to manually enable the backlight. And that's actually available as an input. And then we could tie in whatever piece of logic we wanted to enable the backlight. For example, a member of my family lives in not the nicest street in the world. And for me, a flashing, glowing NFC code touch at nighttime would be an invitation for somebody with a brick. And so what I've done is he's got a motion sensor on his porch. And so I've tied the motion sensor into LON. So it's only as somebody's actually walking up to the door will the backlight come on. But again, completely configurable. I'm going to take that back to manually and to automatically enabled. So I'm going to retick LA. Cool. And that about covers it for the parameters of the NFC code touch. Oh, sorry, one last parameter, number of entries. The NFC code touch creates an audit trail of everyone who has gained or been denied access to it, and you can select the amount of audits it logs before it starts overwriting. By default, it's 10 because in a domestic property, there's no reason to have any more than that. You can set it up to 100. Cool. Then, on the input side of this block, you've really got the available parameters, so things like the on duration of the output pulse, the backlight enablement, but you also have an input for R, which locks the device, so stops anyone being able to gain access. So if you're doing a highly secure building, you could actually put the door into lockdown and nobody can gain access. You've also got inputs for the LEDs at the top of the device, red, green, blue, white. And so you can manually configure some logic to do with them. By default, an accepted tag will flash green and a denied tag or code will flash red. But you could tie in whatever logic you want. For instance, we have on our office that when the burglar alarm is setting, that it flashes blue. So we know that the alarm is being set. So really, really functional options there. And then we move over to the outputs. Outputs are pretty self-explanatory. Typically, they're going to be for things like door locks. And so you can see there we've got output number 1, Q1, which is our primary output. That is typically what we would use for our door lock. So let's pretend that this is the front door. Now, when it comes to front door locks, if you want any information or any recommendations on them, please get in touch with me. I do have a little bit of knowledge. I would say if you're doing a domestic property and it's having a new door fitted and that door is an Internorm door, straight away you can ask the customer to speak to Internorm, and Internorm do actually make a door with a built-in multi-point electronic lock. You just need to provide it permanent power and give it a single relay for a trigger to unlock it. Otherwise, if they're having a door from another manufacturer that will have a multi-point lock-in, find out if that will be a Wink House lock. And if it is, again, Wink House make electronic versions. And you can usually ask the door manufacturer to install the electronic version for you. It will come delivered, pre-drilled with the cable stuck out the frame, and you just need to hide that cable and chase it up the wall. You'll never see it. And again, usually needs permanent power, 12 or 24 volt, and then a single trigger, so a single relay. And those kind of locks are brilliant because they also mean that they always have a mechanical override. The key or the inside thumb turn or handle will always override the lock. So if there was ever a power failure, the door remains locked, but you can mechanically override it. Otherwise, any kind of electronic lock where we can physically control the lock are the perfect ones to use. So mag locks, rim releases, chute bolts, anything where we're providing power and taking it away or giving it a relay to trigger. So this is going to be our front door lock. It is going to have the category of access and the room of outside. I'm going to drag it out and I'm going to put it on Q1 because that is where it should go. I'm then going to save this in. I'm then going to open up the app for us. Give it a second to restart. Here we go. Rooms, outside. There's our NFC code touch. Go into it. here's our front door lock. So straight away, I can already press that. Again, I need the user interface password. I set it as 1234. Boom, there we go. Relay has just clicked for 3 seconds, and I've now got a history. And I can see that the front door lock was opened by the admin's user interface. So it even shows me if people have done it in the app on the history. Through the app as well, I can also add access codes. So if I do have somebody that is staying short term, or maybe is just coming up for a one-off, I can add them a code straight in the app. So let's say that I have the mother-in-law coming round. So I create them there. I can give them an access code, because, you know, number of the beast. And I can also set their validity. So I can say whether they can always have access. No, they cannot always have access. Or I can say that they can get in once and once only. So that code will let them in through the door once, and then after 90 seconds, it will be deactivated. Or I can say that they have timed access. So they can only get in between today at, let's say, 11:24, the current time, until, and they're leaving on, let's say, Saturday, which is the 2nd of May. So find May, there we go, and stick them to the 2nd. And they are leaving bright and early, so 6:24. There we go. Boom, done. Tick that. And now, mother-in-law, 666, tick, and there we go. Door opens, flashed green, and it should have put it in the history. Not quite sure why it didn't. Cool. As you saw there, I did only put a 3-digit code in. You can put in, obviously, a much longer digit code if you want to. I would recommend 6-digit codes. 3 and 4-digit codes are remarkably easy to guess, and I would recommend 6 digits. Cool. Back to config. Now in config, we can see that the program is not identical. That's because I've created a code in the app. If I now load from the mini server and go back into this block and double click, look at that. Key code, mother-in-law, code, and she can get through the front door. Default function is front door, and they're time restricted. So that code that I added into the app is now available here. I could also add more codes in here as well if I wanted to. I could also pair NFC tags in here if I wanted to as well. And I can also rename that output to be something more sensible if I wanted to, so I could rename it to open door if I wanted to be more literal with it. Now, something to explain about what these tabs here mean and who they're for. For anyone that's used other access control systems before, again, if we picture that one with the big green triangle, you have the ability to assign codes and tags to users or to the door itself. And this is what we're seeing here. This is assigning codes and tags just to this single door. So you wouldn't use this for permanent users of the system. For instance, if this is my house, I would not assign myself my code and my tag here. This is only for people with short-term access or people who may be liable to not need it after a certain period of time. So I may stick my cleaner here, I may stick a builder or the mother-in-law or anyone I want temporary access that I can then remove afterwards. For people who have permanent access of the system, that's done on the user's level. And so what we do is under the user, so let's find our user, and there we go, there's admin. We have the option here for authentication, and we can edit this. And it's in here that you then assign codes and tags to the user. And that's done on a user-based level. And then it's based on their permissions about how they can access and when they can access. So on that, NFC code touch. Here we go. We've got access times. And so the NFC code touch outside, admin, through the user group full access, can always access. We can, if we want, change that. So we can create them a new schedule. So you can do schedule-based access then based on a user level. And this is how you would do anyone with permanent access. So either in a house or a commercial building, create a user, give that user to a user group and create a schedule for that user group. So they'll only be able to use this at certain times. Now for adding NFC tags to a user, two ways of doing it. First way, select the user, choose authentication, select NFC tags here, press learn, press yes, and this box then shows up at the bottom. Press learn here, select which device you want to learn it on. This then starts scrolling blue. Present your fob. There we go. It then pops up here, select it, give it a description, and add it to your user. So that is way number one. Of course, with that option though, it means that, oh, sorry, I left that on learn mode. It means that somebody would need config access. And we don't necessarily want to give our customer config access. And so there's another way of doing it. As long as the user has the right for managing users, so you'll see there's a right here for user management. And as long as somebody has that right for user management, so you can see that admin is currently the user with the rights for this, then they can actually do it in the app. And so in the app, they go to the little search icon at the top here. They choose user management. They have to put their password back in. And then they have a list of the users. And so they can then go into the user. And then under here, they can change what groups they're a member of. And they can also learn in an NFC tag or add an access code to that user. So again, they don't have to be an administrator. They just need that right of user management, and then they can do it in the app. So you could give this to a receptionist in a commercial building. So learn NFC tag. And again, starts flashing. Present the tag. There we go. Give it a name. Finished. And now, again, tag. Access granted. Rooms, outside, NFC code touch, history, and here we go. So you can see now that the history is updated to show the mother-in-law getting access through the code, and there is the admin's NFC tag. So you can see you get a timestamp, and you get the output that they've done, the user, and the name of their tag. Cool. I'm going to load from the mini server again, because again, I've done something in the app. I've learned that in through the app. And now you'll be able to see under users, admin, authentication, look at that. There's now an NFC tag assigned to them. And this is what I meant by we take the full hexadecimal number of the UID. And we have also written a piece of information to that tag as well. You can use one tag on multiple systems. So for instance, I've got access to about 4 or 5 different systems. Don't worry, they are all ones that I should have access to on this one tag. The tag can get full though if you assign it to too many systems. And by too many systems, I mean separate config instances. I don't mean systems that may have multiple doors. This building could have 100 NFC code touches and one tag is fine for that one system. Cool. So there's my lock on my NFC code touch. Brilliant. Not a lot else I need to do with that. I could create as many users as I want, learn in their tags, bish bash bosh, they can get in through the front door. The next bit of access control is the intercom. As I said, the intercom is a network device. So we again need to go to network devices, and we can either again manually add it as a Loxone intercom, or we can do a network device search. So network devices, network device search. This, as you can see, has slightly changed its appearance in version 11. After a few seconds, we will start seeing the devices pop up. Now, a really important thing with our intercom. Even though it is one physical device, in networking terms, it's two devices. There is a separate module for the audio and a separate module for the video. And each one of those modules has an IP address. So you can see that this building has two intercoms. So we've got two video modules and two audio modules. Again, we can configure through config things like the IP addresses of those particular modules as well. But when you're adding those modules in, it's really, really important to add the video first. The audio gets added to the video, so add the video first. So find your video module, you can give it a name. So this could be the front door intercom. Give it a room outside, and then add it. Boom. Then take your audio module and again, add it. When they're added, oh no, I did it wrong myself. Look at that. It should have done it all under one device, but hey, you know, I'm not perfect. So what I can do is I can then take this and move the data from one to the other. So you should end up with one device that has your local IP address of your video stream. It should also have your remote address for your video stream. So that's using our cloud DNS service by default. The username and the password for the camera. You set those in a web browser. So in a web browser, you browse to the IP address of your intercom. I believe is 125. Yep. Default, as always, is admin admin. Do not leave it as admin admin. Please change it. You can see in the web browser, you can change the IP address. You can go to advanced, user management, and you can then change the username and password in here. So by default, it's admin admin, but as I said, I recommend strongly to change that. Then you have your host for audio. And again, that should have your IP address for your local audio. And again, you can use a web browser to go to the audio module. And again, default credentials, admin admin. Again, please change. Now, the bit where it gets different, I'm just going to delete this one off because I did that by accident. The bit where it gets different here, though, is the external host for audio. Now, for audio on our intercom, we use a service called SIP. It's basically voice over IP. And so we are not going to be using our cloud DNS service for external audio host. We're actually going to be using a SIP service. Now, if you're putting this on a commercial building, they probably or very likely have their own VoIP system. And you could just add the intercom to their VoIP system and get the details from them. However, if you're putting this on a house, there's a really, really easy solution. There are several free online SIP services. Best one that I've found is called Anti-SIP. So go to the Anti-SIP website. On the side here, try their free SIP services and create an account. So create yourself an account, username, password, email address and name. That's all you really need to give them. And then create the account. The really, really critically important thing though, is the password of your SIP account must be the same password that you changed your audio module to. Once you've created the SIP account, then log into it. Can't remember what the password was. Here we go. So then log into your SIP account, and I would always recommend that you edit the account and you disable voicemail. Disable voicemail to make sure that nobody could accidentally leave a voicemail message that you could then never receive. And then once you've created that SIP account in config, the host for audio external now becomes the SIP service. So it would be sip.antisip.com. Host for, audio username internal is admin. Audio username external is the name of your SIP account that you've just created. And then the reason that the password must be the same on both is because you can only type it in once. Then, once you've done all of that, you drag the intercom out, just like the NFC code touch, and there it is on the page. And straight away, it opens up a configure object box where if you already have music zones, you can tick which ones you want to ding dong when the intercom gets pressed. And you'll see by default, it doesn't tick rooms that are bedrooms. So yeah, I only want the kitchen to ding dong. Okay, save in. And that would then be our intercom configured and working as well. The last things I probably want to do is, if I again go to the app and show you the intercom, is again getting that intercom linked to that door lock and again tying it into other functions. So first things first, intercom. Here it is, front door intercom, and there is the picture from it. I can connect, I can get two-way audio. If somebody presses the intercom, it will also take a snapshot of their face as well, so we'll be able to see them. And then just here, you have a button that says light. That at the moment does not do anything. But what it is a freely configurable button. I think Philip is just going to do us a favor and press the intercom for us. So when Philip presses the intercom, there we go. Straight away in the app, it comes up saying the front door has been rung. It will also make the ding dong sound on your machine as well. And on a mobile phone, not that I have it on my mobile, but it would also come up with a push notification on my phone. I can connect. I can get two-way audio. I think it's coming through my headphones, so you won't be able to hear him, but that's then two-way audio. And if I wanted to, I could open the door. And then what you'll see here under last visitors is a snapshot of when Philip pressed the intercom. So there we go, a lovely, great big mugshot. Thank you very much, Philip. Cool. So first thing I probably want to do is change that button that says light so that it says open door instead. And then I want to make it actually open the door. To do that, I choose here, and it is actually here. We actually have 3 available buttons. If there's no name in them, they don't appear in the app. If there's a name, they do. And so I want to change this to open door. Then I press the grey plus here, and it is output 1, Q1. So they're Q1, Q2, Q3. So select Q1. And again, I could link it to that door lock. Now, something of note is that in the intercom, this output will only be on for as long as you hold that button down. So if you do need to send, let's say, a 3-second pulse to your door lock, then what you need to do is a little bit of extra logic. So something like a switch off delay. And so what that will do is anytime there is a momentary trigger on TR, the output will turn on for the delay that we've put in there. And so we could again get that to pulse for 3 seconds by doing that little bit of logic. If I save that in, that now means that I can now open the door through my intercom as well. The next thing that I probably want to do is, as I showed you on our NFC code touch, there is a doorbell button. Now I probably want that, because that's going to be mounted under the intercom, to do pretty much the same thing that me pressing the intercom would do. Opens up the camera, allows me two-way audio, allows me to open the door. To do that is dead simple. On the NFC code touch block, I've got an output QB, which provides a pulse when the doorbell button is pressed. On the intercom, I've got an input TR, which is the doorbell press. So QB, wrong one. So QB to TR. And that is then the doorbell from the NFC code touch linked to the intercom block. And then finally, getting maybe, let's say, for somebody who's hard of hearing, or maybe at night when we don't want the ding dong sound to sound, getting the lights in the kitchen and the living room to flash when somebody presses the doorbell. To do that, we've got an output here, QB, which is on when the doorbell is active. And so what we could do is we could take that output, and we could put it into a little bit of logic. Let's say something like a retractive switch, which again, when we provide a pulse on TR, the output will turn on for a specific period of time. And so we could say that that is on for, let's say, 4 seconds. And so then we could take our bell output from the intercom into TR. Reason we don't need to take it from the NFC code touch is because we've already linked that to the intercom anyway, so this will automatically trigger. And then the output here, Q, we can link to our lighting controllers. So we could create something called a memory flag. A memory flag is very, very similar to a reference. So you select it in the periphery list here, and then you press plus memory flag at the top, and then it gives you a memory flag on your mouse. Click to drop it on a page, and then draw a line. And very similarly to a reference, it allows us to link 2 bits of config without having a big spiral of diagrams and lines all over the place. The difference with a memory flag, though, is it shows up in the periphery list, so it's a better option when you need to link things across pages. So I can rename this memory flag to be bell pressed, go over to my kitchen, and then find it in the periphery list again, and then drag it back out. And that is now invisibly linked to that there. And then on the lighting controller, I have an input A. When on, the lights flash. Link that to A. Save it in. And then you should just be about able to see. If I just let that save in and then press the bell button on here. So I'm going to make sure that these lights are off first. I'm going to make sure that the app is open. Here we go. So now press the doorbell here. The lights flash in the kitchen. And also it opens up the intercom. Brilliant. So I've now got an audible notification, a visual notification, and it has automatically opened up the intercom for me. And again, on your phone, even if you're not in the app, it will send you a notification just like any other app does. And look, I've now got my option to open door. When I press, trigger the relay. Very, very flexible, very, very simple. I can also, if I want to, create custom logic for things like the speakers only doing a ding dong at certain times of the day. So if I wanted to, I could actually take the music off the intercom directly and then use the bell output, so that QB output there, and then I could tie it into a little bit of fuzzy logic. So in the kitchen, on the music server zone, I've got an input for BE, which when pressed, activates the doorbell. And so I could do a little bit of custom logic that says that when the bell is pressed and it goes through this switch here, and it is not night, so an inversion of night, only then will it trigger the doorbell sound from the speakers. So you don't have to do this. This is extra bit of logic, but if you wanted to, this now means that if anyone presses the doorbell on either the NFC or the intercom, this switch block fires, which then fires this output. This output goes into an AND block. So it says that it has to be the bell has been pressed and it is not night mode. That will then trigger the BE input on a music server zone, which will play the doorbell. And so that then allows us to say that if we've gone to bed, it won't do a ding dong sound. So you can see how flexible you can make things with logic. Cool. So that's the NFC code touch done, the intercom done, both of them linked together, both of them linked to lighting and music, so that when I press the doorbell, lights flash, intercom shows up on the app, I can connect, I can get two-way audio, and I can open the door. Really, really slick and flexible. Other than that, only other thing really for me to show you, I think, would be if you wanted to do any kind of nitty-gritty logic. So I'm just going to quickly end with some cool nitty-gritty logic to really, really show you just how powerful Loxone can be. The NFC code touch. has an output. In fact, it has loads of outputs. But some of these outputs are text outputs that tell you who has been granted access, when, and through what output. So in a, like I say, a large commercial building, I could take the text output that provides the user details of who's been allowed through that door. And then I've got loads and loads of function blocks to recognize text. One of the really cool ones is something called pulse by, which sends a pulse when a search pattern is detected. So I could take the text output into pulse by, double click on pulse by, and then I could do a wildcard for admin. And then what this means is now this output will only fire when the admin user or somebody with the word admin in their user details has presented their fob or code to the lock, and it won't output a pulse for anyone else. The reason that this is powerful means that you could then do things like lift access for controlling access to specific floors. If you'd like to know anything about those kind of functions and features, we've got webinar series based on them as well. And then somebody has just reminded me, so quickly before I finish, gates and garage doors, if you want to link those in as well. We have a gate and garage door function block. So you put that in. You've then got the outputs for whether it's a single pulse to open, close, and stop, or we've also got separate outputs for open and close. You can choose the opening and closing duration, and again, what it looks like in the app, similar to the blinds block. Tie your outputs to it, and then on the inputs, you've got TR, which is trigger to start or stop the gate. You've also got an open trigger, a close trigger, a T5 input, and door status or current open or closed status. So we could take the maybe second output of the intercom into the trigger of our garage or gate. So let's do it as a gate. We could then have a spare relay onto the trigger there, which is the gate trigger. And then in the parameters, we could say that function 2 is open gate. And now save that in. And in the app, we've got the visualization of both the gate in the app, so we can do that separately, but we've also got a button in the intercom to be able to open the gate as well. So back to the app. Just let the mini server reboot. I will pull this to the side as well so that you can see, if I go to live view, you can see live view here. Ooh, let's just try and, there we go. So rooms, I think, which one is outside? Rooms, outside. So now on our intercom, we've got a button to open gate that I can press. And you can hear that trigger going. I show you it on this side. There we go. So you can see that open trigger going. And then we also have a function block for the gate itself. So the gate is currently closed, and I can open or close it directly within the app as well. Cool. So back to my slideshow just to finish off. So we've added them into config. Those are the function blocks. You can see here there is some extra functions that we haven't configured yet. Those would be things for arriving home. So when we get onto the global functions of triple click to leave the house, obviously what we probably want to do is when we badge in through the NFC code touch to say that we've arrived back home again. So that would automatically disarm the alarm as well as unlocking the door and maybe even turn on some welcome lights and some music for us. The intercom, the key parameters, the NFC code touch in all of its glory, key parameters linked together exactly as we did through a retractive switch to flash the lights, config and the app, hugely, immensely powerful. And if you'd like to get your hands on the demo case to try all of this out for yourself, please get in contact with Megan. Other than that, thank you everyone so much for joining. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.